Open, you're going to deal with adversity, failure, success, handling pressure. This is all stuff that I talked about in bullet form. All right, now I'm going to tell a story. The Wizard of Oz. Does anyone know the Wizard? Does anyone not know the Wizard of Oz? Because I was like, do I have to talk about what the Wizard of Oz actually says?
This man right here need to go talk to the wizard and get some jeans made in the past 10 years.
I know I got some foreign. Do you know the Wizard of Oz? All right. I actually looked this up. The Wizard of Oz, I thought it was like, oh, there's got to be some really sweet metaphor about like what this means. Apparently the author was really adamant that it was just some fucking crazy story about adventure. And I was like, oh no, that ruins my whole metaphor for the camp. But I'm going to use it anyway. So the story is Dorothy is some woman that lives in Kansas, or girl. I don't know how old she was. It's kind of ambiguous as a movie. It's done in the 30s. She is in Kansas. Some mean lady comes and wants to take her dog. She runs away from home. She gets back to her house and there's a storm and a tornado. And some weird, I don't really know exactly what happens. Somebody can maybe fill in the details. But basically like the tornado happens and she ends up in some crazy world. I don't know how she goes from one to the other, but that's what happens. So she's in Oz and the land is Oz. And she runs into people on this quest. And she runs into, I think in order, she first ran into the Scarecrow, which didn't have a brain? Okay, Scarecrow didn't have a brain. Then she runs into the Tin Man, who didn't have a heart. And then she runs into this lion, who's really a man dressed in a really shitty lion costume, who doesn't have courage. And their whole plan is to go see the Wizard of Oz. And the Wizard of Oz is basically trying to get her home and trying to give all of those little friends that she's found in Oz the thing that they're missing. So a brain, a heart. So they go, this is like one of the final scenes of the movie. They go, and this is the wizard up here, this big bulbous head, which I was like, oh, I got a big wizard head too, so I could be a good wizard. And they have to go and they got to defeat the Wicked Witch of the West or something and get a big broom from her. I don't remember the details. I don't think they're important. Actually, none of this is important. And they bring it back and they find out that the wizard is just a dude standing behind a curtain. And he's not really a wizard. And I was like, oh, that's what I am. I'm just a fucking dude who people are going to come and I want to have better endurance. And I'm going to go to TTT, and I'm going to get protocols to make my endurance better. This guy reads so many books, he's going to have the answers. And I see this in the fitness market all the time, is that people are searching for their wizard. And what their wizard looks like is different. So some people it's nutrition stuff, some people it's performance, some people it's like, oh, I know I have the strength to hit that 275-pound snatch. There's just something that hasn't clicked and it's coming. I can sense that it's coming. Like, where do you come up with that? Like, what do you mean? How do you have that such? And I know that belief is important, but I think there's a really big danger in thinking that that thing exists, thinking that that magic pill exists. And so I'm going to come back to the Wizard of Oz throughout the course of this weekend, but that's just the first part of the story. I just need to lay context for my real stories, which are going to come later. But takeaway number one, there are no wizards. I am not a wizard. I don't know anything. I have just been lucky enough to find really good athletes that really push themselves in workouts that for some reason trust me. I'm not entirely sure why. You can talk to them afterwards. It's probably because I'm crazier than them and I make them feel sane. With regards to just knowledge in general, I do have a subset of experience coaching athletes in this sport, but nothing that I know is going to apply in all situations. If you're a master's athlete and some of my data is on, 22 to 25-year-old single full-time athletes, there are going to be adjustments that need to be made to that knowledge base. If somebody's out there and they're a notable coach and they've put people on the top of the podium at the games, like, all right, well, what's the context that that person is in their life? What's their training background? How long have they been training? What have they been doing? And all of that stuff matters. So you have to have a skeptical mind to be able to discern information and how it applies to you specifically. I'm hoping that everyone in here that has a coach, their coach is helping them do that and helping teach you, okay, well, how does what Max says on his YouTube videos apply to me specifically? Because it's not always going to be exactly what I say. I mean, most of the time, what I say changes from day to day. And maybe within this talk, I'll change my mind and decide to change my presentation. No coach can continually replicate champions. So, yes, I've had some good luck over the past couple years with athletes, but I've also had some shitty luck. And I've also had some really bad performances. So if I take credit for the good stuff, I'm here vulnerable saying I fucked up too, right? No wizards. I don't want to be a wizard. I don't want to pretend I have the information. No strategy can guarantee PRs. That applies to your workouts tomorrow. You are going to probably have an appropriate strategy. If you talk to your coach, if you've done this before. However, that doesn't mean that you're going to hit a PR. There's no magical formula that you can go into I'm going to take out my graphic and calculator and, time to workout round 1 divided by workout round 10 over the square root of pi equals how much seconds per rep I need to do. That never works. You only have so much attention to focus on what you're doing in training. So there's going to be no strategy that guarantees PR. No explanation will make defeat feel any better. I had a bunch of people in here that were in that group that didn't do as well as they wanted to do. Guess what? That sucked for them. And that sucked that I couldn't talk to them about it afterwards because I had to run a camp. So I'm probably going to have 5 emails talking about performances and what we could do better and what we should do in training between now and the Open to get that better. And that's just part of the process. Obviously I'll highlight the fact that Travis did really well and that most of them PR'd because, that's what people do when they market, right? Just like the wizard. But that's not reality. And that's what a lot of people get stuck in the loop of chasing around the wizards of the fitness industry, thinking they're going to get that answer. And I don't want my brand to stand for that. No athlete's progress lasts forever. So at some point in this sport, your body's going to take the beating. And like in football, they say you lose a step. And it just happens. There's no knowledge base that allows you to revert that at some point. I'm not saying that anybody in here is at that point. I'm not saying any of my athletes are at that point. So don't come after me for saying that. But it happens. And so if you're jumping from another brand because it didn't work for you, make sure you're skeptical about that. Make sure if what you're doing is working, you stick to doing that over and over again because there's no magical formula. There's no diet that works for anyone, no movement technique for everyone, no organization is on the same page. So I have people in here that are my coaches that I completely disagree with about things. But I'm cool with that. I'm not going to run around and be like, no, fuck, you got to change that. Because then, I don't think I'd be very liked. I might not be very liked anyway, but I try. All right. And then the last, no success exists without struggle. And that was a really, really hard thing to learn in my life. I have a really, really vivid imagination about how good things can go. And I think that's something that I leverage with my athletes when I talk about what the possibilities are. When I see workouts, you can do this, we've done this in training. And I only envision what the best of the best of the best can do. And I try to put that pressure on people because I know that pressure is something that brings out what you need if you want to be the best in the world. I realized over time that it was the continual struggle and the continual failing and the continual shit that happened over and over and over again and people standing up after that happened and staying in the fight, that was what was making those people better and better and better and better. And I don't think even the fairy tale story of Matt Frazier, if you go back and look at his history as an athlete, he broke his back, he moved out to the Olympic Training Center, He's went through so much struggle to get to this point, and it's not over. You know, it's not like he's going to win the next 50 straight CrossFit games. Like, it's going to come with struggle. So I think having the context for that is important. Takeaway number 2, personal responsibility. This one comes from, I don't know, maybe the best way to call it is like blame culture. We just have a culture of never being like, oh, you know, that was on me. That workout was like, oh yeah, he didn't get the perfect sleep last night, or I had one too many almonds last night and that really messed my stomach up and I felt it halfway into the workout. One thing I realized is like that gets bred out of the best athletes really quickly. They're like, and they always say like, I don't want to make any excuses. And then they'll say what they want to say because they want to give me the information. And I realize over time, like, man, that's so weird that my best athletes hold themselves to a standard where it's always on them. It's always their fault. Well, with Travis, maybe it was a little different. It was my fault a couple times training. I didn't train him properly with Trav. But most of the time, everyone's taking personal responsibility at the highest level. But then people come and they're like, oh, I've hired 8 nutritionists. I'm like, why? Stick with one. Like, how long were you with them? What did they do? What did the process look like? And I think being able to have that level of personal responsibility is something that's really necessary if you want to perform in the open. So those things and what they're going to be in the open, the resilience of your belief. So you're in the middle of an open workout tomorrow. This is probably going to happen. This is what my psyche does. So I come in, I'm like, all right, fuck, this is going to hurt a lot. All right, I'm ready. 15 unbroken, 30 unbroken, as long as you can, and then break when you go. A lot of anxiety. Fuck, I can't breathe. Fuck, my heart's coming out of my chest. Okay, it's about to start. Oh, fuck, I got to do the camera thing. All right, good, go. 2 rounds in. Oh, shit, I blew up. I'm not going to be able to hold on. This pace is way too fast. And that doubt and that speed of anxiety that goes over and over and over and over and again in your head, or at least for me, do your psyches sound like that inside? Do you have anything going on up here when you compete? No? Well, that's why I'm not good at CrossFit. But that goes on. And at some point, something like 16.2, 275-pound barbell. What's the second to last barbell for girls? 185? 175. You step up and you have a feeling of doubt. Can I lift this? And the people that make the decision to believe in their abilities in that one moment are the people that put up good scores in the open. And that belief gets challenged in every workout in the open. You're going to get 12 minutes into a 14-minute AMRAP and you're going to be like, fuck, I can't hold this pace. I'm going to die. I might poop my pants if I keep going. But you have to have the belief to be able to keep going. And I know it sounds funny, but it's actually true. It actually happens. If you Google poop marathon, you'll see people running with poop coming down their legs. So it's only a matter of time before you're at a Friday Night Lights and you're like, oh my God, he pooped his pants. I don't know if I'd throw up or laugh. Probably both. Anyways, back to my personal responsibility narrative. You're going to face adversity in the open, which everyone knows. I mean, workouts are going to come up. They're going to test things that you're not 100% dialed in on. It's about minimizing the damage on that. Your habits and behaviors. So Kyle's going to talk about his competition guide. On Sunday morning. That's something that you could work on between now and the open. Cultivating behaviors and habits that allow you to recover faster from week to week. I think people always forget that the open's 5 weeks long. There's not many competitions that last for 5 weeks. And that's the worst part about the open for me. I'm like, 2 weeks or one workout, not that bad, but the fact that it's like, okay, it's Thursday again, announcement time. What's it gonna be? And then you gotta come in, you gotta prep the workouts, you gotta get your cameras, you gotta upload them, you gotta make sure your cameras are charged. That process is something that you need to be really dialed in on, because if it stresses you out, you're gonna be tired by week 3, week 4, week 5. So you gotta have habits and behaviors built now that you bring to the open. How you move. I know that perfect movement quality and maximal level of intensity in a Metcon generally don't go hand in hand. You will see some people that are, Rich Froning was really good at maintaining almost perfect level movement quality at his maximal level of output. But it brings into question, is he at his maximal level of output? Was he just better than everybody at the time? I don't really know. But how you move is going to play a part in how you perform in the open. What you're made of at a genetic level and at an emotional level. If you're somebody that's like your relationship with pain, like, you know, you go over, you pick up your first deadlift to warm up for a workout and your back feels a little bit tweaky and you're like, oh, am I okay? Yeah, I'm good. All right, I'll do the workout. And then that thought gets in your head for the next 2 hours while you do the workout. It's going to inhibit your performance output. Your relationship with pain, the way that you deal with pain and think about pain, which I know is not really a construct of what people are like, oh, I'm in pain. There's got to be something wrong. I got an injury. But there's also a psychological, emotional component. The people that are best at this sport, the way they look at and deal with pain is really crazy. I actually ran a little experiment at my house one time with Will, and I think I drove him a little bit crazy because I was like, are you tight? Are you sore? Are you irritated? Are you in pain? Like, what are you? He's like, I don't fuck all of that. What do you mean? Leave me alone. My back's tight. And I'm like, yeah, but like sore muscle, nerve, joint, like what actually is going on in there? And his relationship with pain is just not like mine, which is also why he's a fucking savage and I'm not, or one of the many reasons. But that is going to get challenged in the open. Metabolic pain, breathing pain, heart rate, bumping out of your chest, all that stuff gets challenging. You can't really hide from it in a competition-based setting. So the skills you've developed are probably going to be the ones that you actually bring to the open. And so what the open becomes for everybody year after year is just a learning experience to layer into your continual development in the sport. And one thing that does for you is it can remove pressure of the moment. If you put too much pressure on yourself to perform on that one moment, generally people's performance output drops. There's a book called Performance Under Pressure, and he runs statistics on Michael Jordan. So everyone's like, Michael Jordan always hits the game-winning shot, always. But his statistical percentage at hitting the game-winning shot is actually less than his just normal free throw percentage. He's just better than other people at not letting the pressure get to him as much. And the same thing is probably true of athletes, even in this sport. You put somebody under pressure, like to hit a 1-rep max lift, the best of the best probably aren't going to be hitting PRs every time. They're just going to be hitting bigger percentages of their max than somebody else who's more impacted by pressure. So being able to just say, hey, this is about getting better. It's about getting better for my long-term career in this sport might allow you to be able to perform better. Then obviously your relationship with fatigue, your relationship with pain. So you got to take personal responsibility for all of that. And my brain just went in a million different directions, and I have 2 points. One is that I'm going to come back to the Wizard of Oz, because that's really what I wanted to talk about. And the second was that all of these things are, I don't know, harsh. They're depressing, right? I could even see like, man, this fucking guy is negative. Like, everything's hard. Everything's going to be awful. This, that. Part of why I do that is because one of the ways that you could decrease the impact of stress on your system is by expecting the absolute worst to come, but being prepared for the best to come. And so what I wanted to do, and to end on that note, as opposed to the harsh note, take personal responsibility and stop blaming everyone, is say that what I tried to do for this weekend is I tried to make sure that my coaches gave you tangible tools to get better at the sport, to get better at the open, to think differently about your psyche, about who you are, about respiration, about breathing, because I think those tools are important. However, the truth is that this is a hard game. So that's what the 2 narratives are going to be. One is going to be me coming out, talking about the Wizard of Oz and talking about, I don't know, life lessons I've learned and how I've come to shape my perspective of how I coach, and the other tangible tools to get better. Have a good night.